My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
Good morning, citizens of the Western world. My name is Lord Skylark. Today I'm here to present you the 8 AM news. I think you all heard George Bush announce the invasion of Iraq. But what are the reasons for this invasion and how much influence had each reason to decide to invade Iraq? Oh wait, I hear in my earphones that we have connection with our colleague in Al Basra. He will give us more information to what extent the Enlightenment ideas caused for the military revolution in Iraq. Yes, good morning Mr. Skylark. Salam alaikum. I'm Dennis Oudman. I'm now in Al Basra, near to Majnoon oil field, hiding in the bushes for the bullets. Yeah, it's pretty scary here, man, but okay. George Bush had multiple reasons to start a military revolution in Iraq, but some had more influence than others. I'm going to discuss to what extent did the Enlightenment ideas cause for the military revolution in Iraq. The Enlightenment ideas had a big influence on making decisions to start a military revolution in Iraq, especially after 9/11. Daniel Dennett claims that it was a mistake to suppose that the Enlightenment succeeded in dealing with religion and that the West takes democracy for granted. So the Enlightenment ideas were obvious in the Western world. They wanted an Islamic enlightenment to end religious intolerance. This was the headline of the article in the International Herald Tribune on December 16, 2001. The author, Thomas Friedman, stated in the Western world wanted toleration. He also wrote that the struggle with 9/11 was not between America and terrorism, but between modernity and religious toleration. George Bush had the exact same perspective after 9/11. He began to make use of foreign policy to spread liberal democracy throughout the Middle East. In his speech, Bush Doctrine, he said that the 20th century ended only with a single surviving model of human progress, based on the non-negotiable demands of human dignity, the rule of law, limits on the power of the state, respect of women and private property, and free speech and equal justice and religious tolerance. George Bush wanted to form another law, based on democratic government in Iraq that will liberate Iraq from its dictator Saddam Hussein, which will make Iraq a stable and free country and eliminate the risk to multiple Islamic regimes neighboring Iraq. This will allow America for more safety while there is less threat for terrorism. This is why George Bush wanted to invade Iraq really bad, to make Iraq a democracy and stable. You can compare George Bush with two different Enlightenment thinkers, namely Voltaire and Montesquieu, because they have the same ideas, like almost the same. Voltaire also never stopped fighting for tolerance, freedom of religion's belief and freedom of speech. This was George Bush's main idea to attack Iraq, and he also has some comparisons with Montesquieu. He believed in the checks and balance system. This was what George Bush wanted to bring in Iraq. He wanted to bring democracy. The Enlightenment ideas had a big influence, but there were more causes, of course, and reasons that led to the decision to start a revolution in Iraq. One of them was the economic objective and the military anti-terrorist objectives. The military objectives had a real big influence to start a military revolution in Iraq because of the weapons of mass destruction and the connections with Al-Qaeda. This really scared the Western world. Bush said that the war in Iraq was important to protect us from Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, also called WMDs. He said that this is the global war on terror. He also said that they have evidence on pictures. But at the end of the war, they didn't find any. But at the end of the war, they didn't find any WMDs. He was probably more interested in the in the oil. The evidence of this can be found in the document dated March 2001 for Vice President Cheney's Secret Energy Task Force, included a map of Iraqi oil fields, pipelines, terminals, as well as charts detailing Iraqi oil and gas project. This document was 6 months before 9/11 and 2 years before Bush invaded Iraq. Bush administration also said that Saddam Hussein was related to Al-Qaeda and that he had connections with the 9/11 attack. But at 2006 there was a report prepared at the direction of John Conyers. The document started with members of the Bush administration misstated, overstated and manipulated intelligence with regard to linkage between Iraq and Al-Qaeda. The acquisition of nuclear weapon by Iraq, the acquisition of aluminum tubes to be used as uranium centrifuge, and the acquisition of uranium. And Bush was told in the President's daily brief that the intelligence community had no evidence connecting Saddam Hussein's regime to the 9/11 attack. Bush had, however, evidence that Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda had connections. The Defense Intelligence Agency determined in February 2002 that Iraq is unlikely to have provided bin Laden any useful knowledge or assistance or chemical and biological weapons. 1 year later, Bush's counter argument was that Iraq has also provided Al-Qaeda with chemical and biological weapons training. And the CIA concluded in a classified January 2003 report that Saddam Hussein viewed Islamic extremists operating inside Iraq as a threat. To support this claim, Bush and Cheney went to Ibn al-Shaq al-Libi to interrogate him. He was catched shortly after 9/11 and he was a member of Al-Qaeda. They couldn't find hard evidence of him, so they tortured him. The February 2002 DIA memo reveals al-Libi gave American interrogators false material, suggesting Iraq had trained Al-Qaeda to use weapons of mass destruction. US intelligence thought that the information was untrue, of course, because it was obtained by torture. They couldn't find any WMDs or any connections between Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda. So you can conclude that they used this reason to attack Iraq as propaganda. So they want to scare the Western world how much a threat Iraq actually is. And the Bush administration just used this reason to sell the war to the Congress and the people. The economic was actually the main... Oh my god! Oh my god! I heard some shots! Oh my god, I have to put my helmet on. Okay, I think I'm safe now. I think I'm safe. Okay, we have to find another hiding space. Okay, where was I again? Okay, I start from the beginning. The economic was actually the main reason for Bush to invade Iraq. It's related to the military reasons, because they used the military reasons to sell the war and to cover up actually one of the most important reasons for this war. The economic reason was for America the central reason to invade Iraq. You can say this was a war for oil, because before 2003 the oil industry of Iraq was completely closed to Western oil companies. And after a decade of war later, it's largely dominated by foreign companies like ExxonMobil and Chevron, to BP and Shell. In 2000, Big Oil spent more money to get fellow oilman Bush and Cheney into office than they had spent on any previous election. Their efforts paid off because the National Energy Policy Development Group, chaired by Cheney, was formed. This brought the administration and the oil companies together to plot the collective energy future. So you can see that they were already planning for a war in Iraq. Bush First Secretary Paul Neal said in 2004 already, by February 2001, the talk was mostly about logistics and not the why, but how and how quickly in the final report in May 2001. The task was that the Middle Eastern countries should be urged to open up areas of their energy sectors to foreign investment. And this was what exactly happened, because the State Department Future of Iraq's Projects Oil and Energy Working Group met from February 2002 to April 2003 and agreed that Iraq should be open to international oil companies. Iraq's oil production is nowadays increased with 40%, but 80% of the oil is exported out of the country, while Iraqis are struggling to get basic energy consumption needs. In conclusion, the economic interest in Iraq is the central reason for the invasion of Iraq, together with the military reason, because they are related to each other. They used the threat of Iraq to sell the war, because they have shown the Western people that the threat of Iraq in connection with Al-Qaeda was the main reason of the war. Well, they just wanted oil. My general conclusion overall is the Enlightenment ideas against the monarchy was a small reason for Bush to attack Iraq, so it didn't have a lot of influence on the decision to start a military revolution. America attacked Iraq mainly for oil, because before 2003 they didn't have any access to Iraq's oil reservoirs, and Iraq has the second biggest oil reservoir in the world. So they actually found all the reasons to attack Iraq, to sell the war to the American people, and they had two reasons to attack Iraq according to Bush administration. That Iraq had WMD weapons of mass destruction, like nuclear bombs and chemicals, and that they wanted to protect the Western society from terrorism. But Saddam Hussein didn't have connections with Al-Qaeda, and they didn't have any WMDs. So we can conclude that these were the two reasons to sell the war to the Western world. Nowadays, the production of Iraq's oil increases with 40% in the last 5 years. They produce now 3 million barrels of oil a day, but 80% of the oil is exported to other countries. Well, it's hard for the Iraqis to get basic services, such as water and electricity. And 25% live still in poverty, so this actually means that the George Bush didn't really care a lot about the people of Iraq. Otherwise, he would have helped rebuilding the country.